Hey friends, it's Devin here with Make Anything, and today is gonna be a great video because we've all got desks. Well, actually I was sitting on the floor for several months after moving here, but that has made me really appreciate desks, and that's why I'm especially glad to have FlexiSpot as a sponsor. I loved my first FlexiSpot desk in California, so upon moving here to Sweden, I was very happy to work with them again. And while I've already made more than one video about 3D printing desktop mods and such in the past, I've got several all new upgrades to share today, some printed and some not, and probably some of my best desktop improvements yet. So let's take a look at how my desk space has evolved so far. So before we talk more specifically about my desk here, I want to share my chair. When you're working behind the computer all day like I am, neither sitting nor standing the whole time is ideal. It's all about moderation and variety. And that's why adjustable desks like this are so popular now, with these presets that quickly allow us to switch between different heights. But this also means that a great chair is equally as important. And this BS12 Pro ergonomic office chair FlexiSpot sent me has to be the nicest office chair I've ever owned. It's super adjustable and customizable in just about every way, so it can perfectly suit my body and be nice and comfortable. And while there are more expensive and fancier chairs, the BS12 here really hasn't left me with much to be desired. But there is one issue that I've had with every office chair I've used, and for some reason, I never considered the most obvious solution. My new house has beautiful hardwood floors, and I want to protect them by all means. I've really worn down floors in the past by rolling around for years on end, and my solution was generally to buy those plastic floor protectors. But those don't really look so nice, and all the ones I've found here in Sweden are just too small for the free reign of rolling around that I want to have. There's also rugs, but I've got allergies and they kind of hamper the rolling, so I was mulling over my options for a while, and then I had a thought. What if instead of protecting the floor, I just pad the wheels? Why don't office chairs just have tires? Wow, I am a genius. And okay, there's already dozens of those for sale on Amazon. I mean, it is obvious in hindsight, and I wondered why I'd never seen it before. So I still think it should be more common. Anyways, I still thought it would be cool to solve the problem myself and make it super customized for this chair. So I measured up the wheels, and they've only got this 1mm gap between some moving parts, so that'll be a challenge, but I hoped it would be enough to print some snap-on tires. Here is the sketch I created in Autodesk Fusion, which I revolved to create a reference of the wheel, as well as the basic tire to go around it. The walls are 1.6mm thick, and I added a simple tread design, mostly just for style points. My design printed well on my 𝐒𝐓𝐿 Q1 Pro with Bamboo Labs flexible 95A TPU filament, and this is the batch of 9 tires I printed after my first test print was successful. It was a rare first try success, with the tire snapping snugly onto the wheel and still able to spin freely. So I optimistically slapped on the rest of the tires, and initially it seemed to work. But in the end, certain tight turns were causing the tires to pop off. Luckily, I've got my favorite adhesive on hand, so I applied a bead of 𝐒𝐓𝐿 around the insides of each tire, stuck them on again, and gave them a couple of days to fully cure. So by now I've been rolling around on these tires for several weeks, and they've been working flawlessly, so I'm happy to report that 3D printed TPU tires are a totally viable solution for this problem. And I'm able to roll freely around the entire house without threatening my floors, so that's a print I can really appreciate. Along with improving my sitting experience, I also used TPU filament to try out some standing tools. I've started running a couple of times a week, and my body isn't quite used to that yet, so I've experienced some pretty intense soreness on the arches of my feet. So I thought maybe I could ease my pain with some 3D printed foot massagers. Here's my first model in Fusion. It's a log with these rounded ridges. It was a quick design, a hassle-free print, and it absolutely worked out nicely. Printed with 4 walls and a 15% gyroid infill, it's got some give, but it's still stiff enough to press into the arch and give a nice massage. That said, I did feel like I could use a more aggressive design as well, so I came up with this second style using these cones scattered across the surface of this cylinder, and I achieved that using the geometric pattern tool in Fusion. I made sure none of the overhangs were too dramatic, so it could still be printed without supports, and once again the Q1 Pro pulled it off with no problems. As a massager, however, this thing is pretty brutal. The points are a bit too pointy to put much weight on, so it might be a nice way to promote blood flow while sitting, but for that deep arch massage, I printed a second version with more rounded points, and this one gave me the exact level of pressure I was hoping for. These foot massagers provide me with some much needed relief the day after a long run, and I think the designs ended up looking really fun. After printing these, I realized that I might have been subconsciously inspired by my spathiphyllum plant. And now I feel like I should be using geometric patterns more often, since they can create some really intricate and interesting surfaces. So these are some nice post-run tools, but my new fitness regime has also resurfaced the fact that I've got some pretty fragile little ankles. I've had plenty of ankle sprains in my life, and with the often uneven terrain of the Swedish forests and meadows I've been running through, I'm rolling my ankles more than ever, which is obviously no fun. Besides just running more, I wanted to come up with a somewhat passive way to strengthen my ankles, and since I'm working behind my desk all the time, why not do it there? In California, I had this balance board that was good for overall training of balance, but that gave me an idea for a tool that focuses more on my ankles, which is basically to just have 2 separate boards so each foot is responsible for staying balanced. Here's my proposed idea in Autodesk Fusion, and I came up with this 4-part design in order to combine the benefits of flexible TPU and rigid PLA. The top surface is TPU to provide grip, and that also wraps around the edges to protect the floor, and within that we have a PLA core that will hopefully support my weight. That screws onto this rounded core for the balance ball, and the outside of that ball is also TPU to protect the floor, resist slipping, and hopefully squash just enough to provide the right level of difficulty. These are some fairly big prints, but the only way to see how well it really works is to print it. So I had my Q1 printing the flexible parts, while the Bamboo X1 Carbon handled the PLA parts at the same time. I did have a bit of warping on the foot plates, but they came out good enough. On the foot grip, I did a filament swap after a few layers to bring out the spiral pattern on the surface, and I think that ended up looking really nice. It's definitely flexible and really resilient, but does it all work? First, I'll insert the core, which did take some shimmying, but it ended up fitting nice and flush, and then I'll slide the grip over the platform and screw it all together. There we go. I was surprised that it balances on its own, and when I put it to the test, I found that it worked exactly as I hoped. The individual platforms allow a nice range of motion for my ankles, and it's difficult but not impossible to balance. Using the desk for support, it becomes pretty easy to stand on for an extended period, so my ankles are definitely working, but not getting overly fatigued either. Awesome! These balance platforms are really quite fun, and I'm also surprised at how many of these designs I'm managing to get right on my first attempt. Somehow I managed to achieve the exact level of difficulty I was going for with these, And with the modular design, it also means that it wouldn't be too tricky to swap out different parts to adjust the level of challenge. So if you print these out for yourself, let me know if you feel like they should be easier or more challenging, and I'll do what I can. Now, these are great for working on ankle strength, but sometimes I just need to relax as well. And I've come up with a solution for that too. And surprise, surprise, I didn't 3D print it. Yeah, this dog's got more than one trick. So I'm always looking for ways to reduce my waste, and one area where that's been especially challenging is with the insane amount of packaging that comes with all of these big machines that I've been receiving for my home and workshop, including this desk. I have so much packing foam that I haven't quite figured out how to make use of, but I did realize that I could at least use a bit to provide some relief for my feet. I found that this foam does make a great anti-fatigue mat. So that's cool. I managed to make a little dent in my environmental footprint, but while this functions well, it definitely looks a little bit junky, and I am trying to build a home I'm proud of here. So I thought I'd do a bit of sewing. I just happened to find this massive cut of corduroy in one of my favorite colors at the thrift shop for dirt cheap, and I thought it would make a great cover for my foam standing mat. First, I thought I'd cut a fresh rectangle of slightly thicker foam for ultimate comfort, and since my first mat seemed to be a nice size, I just used that as reference for my new piece. There we go. It already looks nicer. Next, I'll vacuum my fabric, iron it as well, and then start cutting it to size. Now, to be honest, sewing always terrifies me a bit. Fabric is shifting and you have to assemble everything inside out, so I'm just in a constant state of doubt whenever I'm doing a sewing project. So I really wanted to make things as simple as possible for me here, and my strategy was inspired by my IKEA pillowcases, which don't involve any zippers or buttons, and they only take 4 stitches to assemble. This, I think I can pull off. Besides looking nice, corduroy offers the advantage of built-in cutting guides with the striped whale pattern. So once I figured out the width of my fabric, I could just follow that whale to get a nice straight cut. Definitely still anxiety-inducing, but this was as easy as I could make it for myself. To pull this off, you basically want a piece of fabric that is just over twice the length of the foam, so you can encompass both sides and include a little overlapping flap. After confirming that it should work, I can start sewing, first by hemming the short sides. Very slowly, in my case. Then, after double and triple checking my folds, I'll stitch the long sides together on both ends to close up the case. The fit was a bit loose, so I was able to add a second stitch along those sides, which should increase the strength of the final piece. Then I can flip it all right side out, squeeze the foam in there, and amazingly, it all worked out. It's definitely not the fanciest thing I've made, but it sure looks nicer than a raw piece of packing foam, and it's super comfortable to stand on. A big improvement from the hardwood floor, that's for sure. All right, I am super happy and relieved that my cover came out quite nicely. Now I can easily wash the cover and swap out the foam whenever it gets overly squashed. Parallel to this, I was also working on a little wrist support, which is made in more or less the same fashion. I really realized the value of good ergonomics during my floor office period, where I had to come up with some janky solutions to avoid wrist cramps. So making myself a nice wrist support was more than just a warm-up for the standing mat. But it was essentially the same, with the exception of a bit more foam sculpting to create a nice rounded top. Upon my first test, the fit was pretty loose, but that actually worked in my favor, and I was able to add an extra layer of thin foam and with a bit more trimming, it rounded out the whole top, and I think it made for a better support in the end. It works really well for both the mouse and the keyboard, so maybe I'll end up making a second one. Whew! That was actually a nice and easy project to help me get more comfortable with sewing. So if you have the same soft good anxiety as me, maybe you want to give this a shot. I'm actually feeling encouraged to make my own pillow covers going forward using this nice and easy technique. This was a nice little break from 3D printing, but I can't deny the power of printing, and I did use it for a few more desk-centric upgrades. Again, props to FlexiSpot for sponsoring me and providing their excellent 𝐒𝐓 Pro premium standing desk. I probably spend the most time behind my desk, so it's kind of one of the most important products in my life, and I'm really happy with my choice. The 𝐒𝐓 Pro is super stable, it's strong enough for whatever I might put on top of it, and it was easy to put together. As with my first FlexiSpot desk, I printed these TPU covers for the feet to make sure that it won't damage that wood floor. And as you can see, I was first using this smaller desk, but I ended up upgrading to a huge 200 centimeter wide desk that makes the most of my space. And now I have so much surface area to work with. I also got these F7D monitor mounts from FlexiSpot, and I love that you can actually mount it directly through the desk, which creates a really clean look. In my last video, I already shared the VESA adapter I made to connect my MSI monitor to one of those arms, and on the other arm, I connected my 𝐒𝐓𝐿 speaker with a custom adapter as well, because why not? Another nice FlexiSpot accessory is this clamping power strip, which helps bring cables off the floor, and it includes some extra USB ports as well for convenient charging. This big TV is acting as my second monitor, and while I plan to wall mount it at some point, it's worth noting that the 𝐒𝐓 Pro can handle all this extra weight with no problem. Anyways, my next 3D printed accessory is this very simple but useful mount for my headphones, which I printed using the X1 carbon with polycarbonate filament for a super robust part. The idea here is to store my headphones in a way that's both accessible and out of the way, so I screwed this hanger into place under the right corner of my desk, where it's nice and hidden but easily within reach. Tucking my headphones under my desk here is so simple and effective, and it made me realize that there's all of this available space under the desk that generally goes unused. And it's so nice, everything's hidden, and it's just a big blank canvas. So what else can I stick under there? I think it would be pretty awesome to mount my whole PC to the bottom of the desk, although I'd have to come up with a really secure way of doing that to feel comfortable. But for now, at least one other thing that I realized I could hide under there is my Wi-Fi router. Here I started by transferring the mounting points of the router onto this piece of paper so I could easily drill my pilot holes under the desk. Then I simply screwed in the appropriate screws and popped the router right into place. It's a little crooked, but that doesn't really matter because it's completely hidden from view under the back of my desk. Sweet! I will definitely have to make more use of the bottom of my desk like that. So leave a comment if you have any ideas, but that's it for today. So I hope you appreciate my new desk-centric creations. I'm sure there are more to come, but for now, I'll leave links in the description for the files I shared in this video so you can print your own, as well as links to the FlexiSpot products I shared in this video. I spend so much time at my desk, so I'm really glad to have these premium products, and I can't wait to keep customizing my office and make my time behind the computer more enjoyable. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. So easy, just leave a little like, click. Thanks to my Patreon supporters as always for making these videos possible. All of you are awesome, so take it easy, and as always, stay inspired. Down we go. Automatic limbo pole. Maybe that's the next project.